Hey, welcome back to another episode of CX Riot Radio, where we talk about customer experience and stuff. Still in a hyper caffeinated state. Yeah, that's right. I'm David. I'm the caffeinated CXO, and I'll be your host uh, on CX Riot Radio. Excuse me. Let's just have a nice Sprite here. So, if you're new to the show, this is what it is, right? You're hanging out with me, watching a video game. Today, you're hanging out in my backyard. I'm out of my back deck. I have a nice view. It's okay. You can deal with it. We're just hanging out. Couple of guys, couple of people, couple of human beings, and we're just talking. We're just yapping. We're just we're just doing it, right? So before we begin, if you want, like, share, review, rate, comment, do all that stuff because we can make the show grow if you do that stuff. And I really want this show to grow. I'm counting on it. And if it doesn't, that's okay. I'm not too terribly upset. So yeah, it'd be nice to get into more ears, get into more people's heads. But it is what it is. We'll get there. We'll get there. We'll get to everybody. Everybody will see. Yeah, we're gonna show them, aren't we? All right. My hair hasn't been this long since COVID, by the way, since like midway through the pandemic. I need to get to the barber. This is getting ridiculous. Anyway, that's why I usually wear a hat, you know. Otherwise, it gets in my mouth now. Like what? Oh, and although it does go nice with the beard, I guess. So, I mean, it is what it is. I can't tie it in a ponytail mostly because my fingers are not that dexterous to do the little tying thing in the back. And I don't think it's long enough yet, actually. So it's in that weird stage where you can't really put it back and tie it back or anything, but you can slick it back with enough pomade that would probably choke a horse. So we're just yapping. Um, I have merch. I have books. They're on the link tree that'll be in the little description or the show notes, depending on the platform you're on. The shirts are pretty cool. I'm not wearing one right now, but I was wearing one yesterday. So, yeah. Who's your god now? Books, there's links to either buy them off of Amazon, please, or you can download the PDFs. Ain't no big thing. I didn't write them to make a profit, and they're priced on Amazon to where it's like the bare minimum. I like honestly, I couldn't price them any lower. So, you know how it be. You know how it be. So I've never done the split screen thing before, and that's pretty cool. But today we're going to talk about some stuff that's kind of important to me, right? And that is being data driven because I am incredibly data driven. I can be so data driven that I can get myself into trouble with people. All right. And I don't want that to happen to you, right? When you're coming up in leadership, when you become a manager or a supervisor or a VP or a director or whatever your title is, it doesn't really matter. Titles are normally bullshit anyway. There's two schools of thought when it comes to leadership, right? There's the be data driven. Everything is on Excel. Your people are their numbers. Their numbers are you. You and your numbers are the company's numbers, and so on and so forth, right? So you end up managing off of a spreadsheet where everybody is literally just their stats. That's a little weird, right? And then there's the opposite side of that, that a lot of people are going to. And that's the fluffy, duffy, lovey dovey, incredibly emotionally intelligent manager that manages off of emotions, that manages off of vibes, right? And yeah, you can buy you can buy a lot of loyalty with that, right? It doesn't it's like investing back into your team with feelings and feels and all that stuff, right? But does it get the best results? No. It probably gets better results than the spreadsheet manager, but still there's room for improvement. What you need to do is have a marriage. You have to have a merging of the two extremes, where yes, you are data driven, and yes, you know how to read the data. I'm going to be started on that one. And you know what to do with the data. You know how to act on the data. But you have to also realize that data is a powerful tool. And tools can be used for harm or for good. So it's just like cigarettes, right? Right. If you're a bad person, cigarettes are incredibly unhealthy and they will make it so that you can't breathe and they'll launch you into an early grave. But if you're a good person with a kind heart and a pure soul, they're just going to have the cognitive effects of the nicotine and nothing else. Right. So it's fine. It's fine. It's like, what are you going to do? So, anyway, data is powerful, but like any power, it can be used for good or evil. So, you have to temper the data with emotional intelligence. Data does not tell the whole story. The metrics are not the whole picture. Let me explain what I mean. All right. So in any good CRM, right, where you're putting in inputs, where you're doing data entry, or let's say for the purposes of this podcast, you're taking calls, right? And you're entering stuff into the system while taking calls. Weird, right? Any good CRM is going to have a report that measures that shows how many calls you're taking, that shows how many um, how many entries you're putting into customer records, right? And if there's a giant gap in between two entries, right, or two calls, well, that must mean that that person wasn't doing their job. That means that that person was just fucking around and not working and being a sponge. Where, if you actually dig into it, maybe there was a reason there was such a big gap. Maybe they were doing something. Maybe the system went down. Maybe they were on lunch. Maybe they had a doctor's appointment that they told you about and they put on the time off request thing and you just neglected to look at it. Crazy. So, data without context is dangerous. That's all I'm saying, right? Here's another thing. If you're just spitting out numbers, if you're spitting out data, if you're spitting out metrics, employees can feel really demoralized when you're just using that to call people out and you're not using that data to help them. Data should be used, metrics should be used to help improve the people that caused the metrics, right? They're a very good teaching device or a very good training device. And yes, they're a very good accountability device. But why are you using accountability as a weapon? Why are you weaponizing data? Don't do it. Don't do it. So now there's also the aspect of short-term thinking, right? If you're over focused on a particular metric, if you're focused on metrics that move the needle, right? But you don't have the foresight to see what that would look like in the future, you're fucking yourself. Okay. It can lead to quick fixes in one aspect, but totally derail another. Let's take average handle time as an example. All right. So a lot of places, right, especially the big contract centers, focus a lot on average handle time and for good reason, right? They get paid more the more calls they take. So if you keep handle time low, you get to take more calls. So sometimes they'll incentivize average handle time. And so what ends up happening is because people like bonuses, people like incentives, people like making more money. Imagine that, right? That they're going to start, not everyone, but enough, will start rushing people off the phone. And yeah, they'll take more calls, but a lot of those will be repeat calls, right? Customers calling back because their issue wasn't resolved. But the average handle time is great. It is within the KPI thresholds. But now CSAT is in the toilet, first call resolution is down the drain, and you got a bunch of angry customers. So, I mean, what are you going to do? You know? So, that's one example, and probably the lowest hanging fruit example I can think of is using average handle time, that data point, to make changes. It doesn't work. And how do I know this? How can I sit here and tell you that? Well, I have a surprise for you. I've done that. I was that guy who said, well, if we can incentivize this behavior will happen. Not the bad behavior, the low handle time behavior, right? If we incentivize lower handle times, lower call times, then one, we'll get paid more because we're taking calls, and two, we'll lower the handle time, and our people will get more money for doing so, right? Now, I was able to roll it back before I got too out of hand, but other places, not so much. When your customer service team is racing the clock, shit is going to go sideways fast. When they're incentivized to take more calls rather than good calls, where they're actually helping and resolving issues, the reason that the customer fucking called for, by the way, nothing too outrageous, then yeah, that's about as outrageous as like measuring average handle time in a tech support center, right? Oh, you have 5 minutes to fix these issues. You ever done that work before? Sometimes it takes more than 5 minutes to have someone restart their freaking computer. Craziness, 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 craziness. So, how can you use data and emotional intelligence at the same time? Right? That's the question that we pose to answer on this episode, this fantastic episode. Well, make data a conversation. So instead of saying shit like, hey, your numbers are terrible, ask, what's going on? How can I help with this? What questions do you have that can help you make these numbers more in line with what the standards are? Look for the story behind the numbers. Combine the analytics with insights from employees. Like, why is it like this? Why is it this way? What happened here? Get like that. Celebrate wins. You should be doing this anyway, right? Use the data to recognize success, right? Not just the failures. If someone's doing a good job by the numbers, celebrate that. Make sure they're doing a good job in other ways, right? That's the issue with a lot of QA scoring. It's very binary, check the boxes shit, especially the new automated ones, which, let's face it, a lot of them still go off of transcripts. So as long as they're sticking to the script, it's all good. So, and then coach, don't just correct, right? Use trends to guide development, not just to enforce rules. And you can dig deep into data. You can make it say whatever it is you want it to say, honestly, if you know how to manipulate it enough. But let's say that you're just going off of a call center report, right? And it spits out things like calls taken, unique calls taken, lead calls, book calls, average handle time, total talk time, this, that, and the other, right? If you see a dip in whatever it is, right? Whatever it is you're monitoring, or one particular stat block, right? One particular column on that report, you see it sinking, and not just with one or two people, but with them with a multiple. That means that issue might be systemic. That issue might be rampant throughout the entire department, and you're lucky to catch it if you're looking at the data often enough. And I can't stress this enough. You can't just wait until the end of the month to look at your fucking numbers. It has to be like a daily, hourly thing. So if your CRM has the ability to schedule reports and send them to your email, schedule those fucking reports. Right. I have reports that get into my inbox every 2 hours. And while that might be a little crazy, it's helped defuse a lot of situations. So things like, why are there so many abandoned calls in the last hour? Why is this that and that this? Things like that. And then you can, in real time, mostly, fix this issue and see what's going on. The case of the abandoned calls spiking in an hour was because of a SIP issue, right? Or something. I forgot what it was. But the calls were literally bouncing off of the system. We got it fixed relatively quickly. It was a issue with the provider. Thank God. And but if I had not been reading those reports, right? If I had just been going, oh, everything's good, I'll just check everything at the end of the day, then things would have been fucked for more than they were. So, yeah. So know your data, live your data, breathe your data, but have a fucking heart. Talk to people. Find the reason behind the numbers. You'll be glad that you did. And here's the thing, it's not that hard to do. And if you don't have a heart, if you don't have emotional intelligence, why are you a leader? You have to actually like people in order to lead people. And where I'm not the most extroverted person, I'm not, but it is what it is. But I still have a heart. And I know that the data doesn't tell the whole story a lot of the time. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it's a 100%, right? Like you can tell if someone just doesn't care with enough data, right? You can tell the people that do care because there's a lot of spikes, right? You can help someone who has a lot of spikes more than someone who's constantly underperforming, even after multiple coachings. And then the people who are even, like at a, like let's say a 90% booking rate in their entire tenure after training, they're good. They got it. We'll get into more leadership topics in future episodes, but that's it. Use data, be data driven, but have a heart. People are going to like you a lot more. People are going to respect you a lot more, and you'll be able to lead them a lot more effectively. That's it. That's today's episode. Thanks for tuning in to CX Riot Radio. I'll see you next time.